Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, your host today. Very interesting interview with Marin Katusa. A book, again, is The Colder War. You need to get that to get a background as to what's going on. There's all kinds of ominous signs we see in the financial markets as well as the legislation that was passed as part of the Boehner budget betrayal, I should call it. We're going to take your calls at 800-259-9231 if you have any comments about that. I also wanted to go over some of the news that's been happening. We've got a couple of big trials, one that's not going to happen, another one that we are going to have a verdict coming out soon. We have reported from antiwar.com that the U.S. Army today has announced that it is going to cancel a 2-day pretrial hearing at Guantanamo Bay that's related to the FBI infiltration of defense teams for detainees. They provided no reason for the cancellation. Now, the interesting thing about this is that we learned that the FBI had infiltrated the defense teams of 5 different detainees, and what they were doing was collecting intelligence and essentially spying on the defense teams. So they put spies inside the defense teams, reporting back, presumably, to the prosecution as to how these guys were going to defend their clients. And they say the new hearing was supposed to explore what other efforts the FBI had launched, but it seems now that that's not going to happen. Now, we also have a report up on Infowars.com. Political prisoner Barrett Brown to be sentenced tomorrow. And this is why the results matter to freedom in America. You need to read this article. It's from Liberty Blitzkrieg, and he points out the feds went after Barrett Brown in the same way they went after Aaron Schwartz, that they say led to the suicide of the latter. I'm not so sure that it was a suicide. We see this always being called suicide. Nevertheless, they came out with a bunch of trumped-up charges, they say, including that of copying and pasting a link. There you go. See, it's a crime to even link to something, and that was the key thing. They say that charge was later dropped, but they're still threatening him with 105 years in jail. He's now served over 2 years in a federal penitentiary without bail, and his sentencing is tomorrow. He still faces 10 years in jail for exposing the shady relationship between intelligence contractors and the U.S. government. That's how bad things have gotten. And they point out here, they said, all of this makes sense only if you understand what Barrett Brown did. He spent the beginning of 2011 advocating for the effectiveness of Anonymous as a force that could bring transparency to institutions and to government through digital protests. But that's the last thing we want in America, isn't it? Transparency. We don't get transparency even from our local government officials. They're all acting as if they're part of the CIA, as if they're all James Bond. And you know, they also think they've got a license to kill. That's exactly what the mother of the 12-year-old who was murdered by the cops as he was holding a BB gun. And you can see the video footage. He doesn't give him a chance. He's not doing anything threatening to anyone. He pulls up, the cop pulls up and jumps out of the car and shoots the kid down. And the mother says, you're not James Bond. You don't have a license to kill. And yet we see that is what they are training the local police. And we have an article up on Infowars.com. We talked to Paul Joseph Watson about earlier the fallout from the video that we showed yesterday from Spokane, Washington, where a sheriff's deputy was bragging about his MRAP vehicle and said that when questioned why he needed something like that, said it was for the Constitutionalists. Well, now the sheriff has posted up a very long, rambling response to that, essentially attacking InfoWars. You can see that video. You can see the original video. You can see his response to that, and you can see our comments about that. But that video speaks for itself, and the context is one of a government that is training law enforcement to view everyone as a threat, to view us as all as terrorists, and to militarize the police department. And we can see how petty that has become in many areas. We'll be right back with your calls. Again, the number is 800-259-9231. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, your host for this hour. We're going to go to your calls in just a moment. But I want to let you know about our Prison Planet TV special. I'm one of the people that hangs out there. We have a lot of anchors and reporters there on a daily basis. And of course, that's the news every night at 7 Central, 8 p.m. Eastern from InfoWars. We also, if with your membership, you have access to all of Alex Jones's documentaries, a great way to give people a perspective, to wake them up, to give them a context for what's going on with the news. Right now, we're running a special. It's normally $54.95. Now it's only $29.95 for a year. That's 7 months for free. If you break it down as monthly basis, that's $2.50 a month. You can share that now with up to 20 other friends or family. You can pass that password along with them. If you do that, that breaks down to just 12 cents per person per month. So take a look at that. It's a good time to an advantage for you to get it at this time of year, and it also supports our operation. We also have a special that's running for just 2 days. That's the Essential Holiday Health Pack. It's 3 of our most crucial nutraceutical formulas: Secret 12, Survival Shield X2, and Silver Bullet. Right now, it's available for just $59.99 for just these 2 days. At retail, it would be $139.85. You save $79.90. That's nearly 57%. So you get all 3 of those: Secret 12, X2 Nascent Iodine, and Silver Bullet for only $59.99. That's just 2 days, today and tomorrow. And of course, if you order something today or tomorrow by the 17th, that's tomorrow, it is guaranteed Christmas delivery. And that's a 2-day special. So check that out at InfoWarsLife.com. Let's go to your calls right now. We've got someone calling from Germany. Eric in Germany. You wanted to talk about Hollywood on Russia. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, David. We all know that Hollywood has many, many examples of foreshadowing events that have in turn happened. For example, the X-Files and 9/11. And this past weekend, I was watching a old movie. It's not old. It's from last year. It wasn't big, but it was Jack Ryan, Shadow Recruit, and there's a speech in it. And if you were to YouTube Jack Ryan Zero Hedge, it's the first thing that comes up. I put it on Zero Hedge a couple days ago. This will send chills up your spine. It is the creepiest thing because, you know, whoever wrote this movie, they had some creative arts degree from Berkeley. You know, they don't understand the foreign exchange market. They don't understand how to use currencies as a weapon. But when you listen to the speech, for people who know how foreign exchange works, it's the creepiest thing because it's how to destroy the American financial system. And I'm not saying the Russians would do this to us, because the Russians, they have enough problems of their own. They don't need to start a war with the states, but we all know that our banker oligarchs are going to have to start a war with someone so they can distract the populations from the coming bail-ins, the collapse of the dollar, the collapse of the stock market, which is going to wipe out everyone's pensions. I'll get off the phone and let you respond. Maybe you can take a look at the video over the next break, and I can listen.
Well, give us while we got listeners on the phone, give us a gist of what they do, if you can summarize it very quickly to take down the U.S. system.
Sure. The gist of the speech is that there will be a terrorist attack on the United States, and thereafter there's a terrorist attack. All the foreign exchange reserves held by Russia in United States treasuries are dumped into the open market. So for those people who don't know how the secondary bond market works, when the American government borrows money, it sells a T-bill. And this T-bill, it doesn't just stay in someone's pocket. It's like stocks. You can buy and sell them. So when there's a ton of these T-bills available, the price goes down, which means the interest rate on that note goes up. So Russia right now holds well over $100 billion worth of American T-bills. Now, one thing that's interesting is earlier this year, Belgium, a country that's very small, started purchasing hundreds of billions of dollars worth of American federal debt within a very, very short window. Most speculation is that it was the Russians purchasing this debt. So let's say, hypothetically, that the Belgian purchasers, plus the official Russian sovereign holdings of T-bills, the Russians have $200 to $300 billion in American debt. That would put them number 4 behind China, Japan, and the Treasury, and the Federal Reserve. If we were to have a terrorist attack, we all remember what happened the day when the market opened after 9/11. It went down 600 points. If we were to have a terrorist attack and the next day or later that day, Russia liquidates all of their Federal Reserves, it would be the end of the petrodollar as we know it. We know that Putin wants to take down the dollar as the world's reserve currency. He's working on a swift alternative. He is doing currency swaps. He's got currency swaps going with New Zealand, Australia, India, China, Brazil, and South Africa right now. He's trying to create another system that runs parallel to the dollar. You can Google this, CNN, Fox, Bloomberg. documented. And the idea behind this movie and behind this speech is that there's a terrorist attack. They liquidate, Russia liquidates the reserves. When the market, the Treasury bill market, is overwhelmed with supply, the interest rate on American debt will go up. Now, right now, the American government's paying about 2.5% to 3% to borrow money for 10 years. A 100-year average is 5 to 7%. So right now, just to service the outstanding debt, the American federal debt, it's about 11% of the annual budget, or about $300 billion per year, just interest on our debt. But this is with interest rates right now at all-time lows, 100-year lows. What happens when this interest rate goes back to the 100-year average? It's not, let's not say 5, 7, 10, let's just say 4%. A lot of people think, oh, well, we pay 2.5, you go to 4, it's not that big of a deal. You know, it's 1.5%, we can afford that. But the bond market and the way the government is able to fund itself, it doesn't work this way, because we're paying 2.5% right now on a 10-year note, and it's 11% of the budget.
Well, you know, what's really amazing is it's almost like, as I pointed out in the interview, it's like we got economic warfare, and it's like bombing each other's cities. I mean, I'm looking at this article from Russia. They're facing some of the same stuff you're talking about, but it's already hitting them. They're seeing their interest rates jump up to 17%, and they point out in this article from RT that the interest rate hike is the sharpest since 1998. And then they saw rates higher than 100%. And essentially, Russia defaulted on their debt in 1998. I mean, this is massive economic warfare that is unfolding right before our eyes. Both of them are going at it, Russia as well as our side. And I guess the bad thing, Eric, is that I get the sense that we're under friendly fire as well from the Federal Reserve, aren't we?
Well, absolutely. The Federal Reserve right now, they have interest rates at 0, but inflation, according to the CPI, and we all know the CPI is cooked, inflation is sitting at a mere 2% roughly. But if you look at like the Walmart Inflation Index, which measures the cost of things like food that isn't included in the CPI, it's closer to 4 or 5%. So your money sits in your bank account earning nothing.
Yeah.
But you're losing 5% of your spending power every year. You're just getting hammered. What's interesting with this foray with Russia right now is that Putin, I don't think, has returned fire yet. He's kind of taken the first assault. If we've seen the movie Kingdom of Heaven with Orlando Bloom, there was that first assault, and they wait.
Yeah.
And they wait, and we all have seen Hunt for the Red October. And
yeah, he's got a plan. He's got a long-term plan, and you know, he's kind of like the honey badger. I mean, guy just keeps going, and you know, so we're playing checkers and he's playing chess. But you know, like I said before, the really scary thing to me is the fact that we are also under friendly fire from our own president, from the Federal Reserve, which is allied against us, and of course, from the CIA's proxy, the Saudis, who are essentially attacking our own American energy independence. Thank you so much, Eric. That was very informative. Let's go to Jeremy in Colorado. Jeremy.
Hi, Dave. I'm actually glad I got to talk to you because if I remember right, you have an engineering background. I wanted to talk about energy independence, and in this case, particularly water fuel conversions. I know it's come up in these kinds of circles a lot, HHO, Brown's gas, and such. But I wanted to mention a video. If you type in on YouTube, Revelation of Truth 10, Revelation of Truth 10, it has to be done specifically like that, or else the results will get buried in a bunch of Bible-related material. But it talks, it's all source video pertaining to Stanley Meyer's work and the stuff he pioneered. And I came across some other material that actually, I guess, makes it more practical and easier to understand at educate-yourself.org. The reason I'm bringing this up is because, you know, with the instability in the, global oil markets and energy independence and all the, and, the impending disaster scenario, this is not one of those topics that we can afford to say, oh, it might be able to be, we might be able to do it, we might be able to, I don't know, speculate and debate on it. It's one of those things that, I mean, as far as just getting up from underneath the thumb of, I guess, the oil cartel, so to speak,
Yeah, one of the things that was interesting about the Colder War, the book that we just talked to the author in the last hour about, was, of course, the rise of oil as an energy source. And, of course, along with it, the rise of John D. Rockefeller. He pointed out that he had a fortune that in today's dollars would be about $340 billion, saying that he was, as far as we can reliably ascertain, the richest man ever in history. He pointed out that back in the 1300s, there was a guy who owned half of the world's gold and half of the world's salt, which, of course, salt was a very expensive commodity at that time back in the 1300s. Presumably, he might have been wealthier, but, you can't really correlate going back that far. But certainly, if you look at John D. Rockefeller, he was very powerful. And so what we have here is a lot of very powerful vested interests. We have the largest producers of oil in the world are not the private companies, as he points out, but the national governments, like Saudi Arabia. So there is a lot in the way of people coming up with energy and independence. There's a lot that's there to shut people down. Just look at what's happening to the oil shale business. I mean, even something that is kind of a side business, look at how Saudi Arabia reacts to domestic production of oil. They quickly drop prices in order to put them out of business. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more of your calls. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I am David Knight. We're here taking your calls. Before we go back to your calls, though, I wanted to point out an article that's up on Infowars.com, The Ultimate Guide to the Mainstream Media and American TV Networks, How Media Pundits Are Interconnected with the CFR and with Each Other. Now, this is an article that was originally up on RT. Kit Daniels pointed out to me. We posted it up, and they have subsequently taken their article down. And I guess the question is, what was it they didn't want you to see? I don't know, but it's more than just a tale of consolidation. I think they put it back up. I was just told they put it back up. It's still a very good article. You should take a look at this because we've shown many times how consolidated the mainstream media is, being owned by only a half dozen different companies. But this also interconnects it with the CFR. And, of course, the Council on Foreign Relations has dominated the State Department since its inception, the early 20th century. And even though Reagan was not a member of the CFR, as soon as he got to be president, he put about 360 people, I believe, if I'm correct, from the CFR into the State Department. So they dominate our foreign policy, that particular think tank. And there's much to be said about that. We won't go into it, but look at that guide. It's up on Infowars.com, The Ultimate Guide to Mainstream Media. I think you'll find it very interesting. Lots of graphs and charts there as well. Let's go back to your calls. Let's go to Eleanor in Missouri. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
I thank you for taking my call. I wanted to just comment on the first guest. I think that, or the first caller. I think that he was right on with the false flag thing. But I wanted to ask you, do you think that this whole scheme can wait until the September, October time frame that they're always pulling these?
I really don't know. I mean, when you look at all of the signs in the economic signs that are queuing up here, already we've seen a massive upheaval from this manipulation of the price of oil that's going on by Saudi Arabia. And there's a lot of, we've been talking about all the different aspects of that. It's already having a massive effect on Russia's currency, on their interest rates. We know that it's having a massive effect on oil derivatives in this country. And of course, we are all on the hook for those derivatives now. We were put on the hook by it, by the Boehner budget betrayal, along with the Democrats. They essentially have the American taxpayers underwriting this massive speculation, this gambling by the major banks. That's something that had been taken off with Dodd-Frank, and now they put that back in as part of this budget deal. So there's a lot to be that can happen out of this. And, of course, we also pointed out that they have put, effective next Monday, they're going to put limits on the movement of silver and gold. Now, they didn't do that before when silver and gold were plummeting because they were dumping those. But now they're concerned, I think, that people are going to be running for safety when they see currencies collapsing, when they see the derivatives market collapsing. So I don't really know what's going to be happening, but some very, very ominous signs. What's your take on it, Eleanor?
Well, I've been looking on the internet and, look in chat rooms and stuff like that, and a lot of the people think that in February it'll all fall apart.
Well, it's hard to predict the timing, but the simple fact of the matter is, as I pointed out the other day, these banks with a little bit of lobbying, they spent a few $1 million and they got essentially $2 quadrillion worth of insurance, depending on how you estimate the total derivatives market. And it's hard for anybody to do that because it is so incredibly complicated. And so, nevertheless, it's an astronomical figure. And they were able to get that insured for like $1 per $1 trillion worth of insurance that they get. Now, you can't get that from the bank because they know that you're eventually going to die. We should not be giving that to these bankers with their derivatives because we know that these derivatives are eventually going to blow up. It's just a question of timing as to what the timing is going to be, whether it's going to be in February, or whether it be in this spring, or whether it's going to be next fall. Who knows? They could set things in motion that they don't have total control of. The bigger picture is that there's going to be massive chaos as the petrodollar disappears. We have forces within the United States working to make that happen. And, of course, we have Vladimir Putin working very earnestly, like I said, like a honey badger, to take away the petrodollar. And he is building alliances to make that happen.
From the water table to our soils to the atmosphere itself, our world is becoming more and more toxic each and every day. But it's not just the air outside that's toxic. Indoor air has been shown to have 2 to 5 times higher concentrations of pollutants than even outdoor air. And most Americans spend 90% of their time inside using toxic chemicals within their homes. There are more than 42 million smokers in the United States. Well over 1,000 types of mold and mildew linked to numerous conditions. And don't forget the fact that 6 million Americans live with pets they're allergic to as well. When I began to research these statistics, it was clear to me it was time to start cleansing my lungs in order to combat the toxic environment that we cannot escape, but that we can fight back against. Made with organic and wild cultivated herbs and manufactured in the USA, the new InfoWars Life Lung Cleanse is here in a convenient spray bottle that can be brought with you throughout any toxic environment. Now available exclusively at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139.